Hi, this is our second installment on the KBS, let me get it right, the KBS MBF-013, a bread maker available through Amazon. Before I get started, I'd like to talk just for a second about why a bread maker. Why do I use a bread maker? Why would a person use a bread maker that has been baking bread for over 30 years? I don't like failures. When I make bread, it's because I need to get a loaf of bread made. It's not something I'm doing for a party, it's something I'm doing for everyday food. And nothing to me was more frustrating than spending my time putting a loaf of bread together and having it not rise or turn out like a lump of lead. I found that with a bread maker, I never have a problem with a failure, knock on wood. So, with that said, let's continue from where I left off at the first video when I could not get the bread pan out of the bread maker. There is nothing in the instruction manual that tells you how to do this. And I'm sure those of you that have other bread machines might say, well, you dummy, of course. You have to turn the bucket counterclockwise. When you turn it counterclockwise, it releases. Likewise, when you put it back in, you have to turn it clockwise and it locks and engages. Let's speak for a moment about the bread pan. Pretty much typical of any of the 1 pound through 2 pound loaf bread pans that I've seen on makers that I've had, with the most notable difference that I can see is number one, the quarter turn lock. So when you put it back in, you do have to make sure that the drive portions on the bottom of the bread pan are aligned like that, so that you can put it in and it doesn't interfere and it will lock down. Please make sure it gets locked down. The other thing I want to bring to your attention about this bread pan is the drive pawl here has been riveted on. On other bread makers that I've had, it has been held on by a retaining clip, and well, it was replaceable if you needed to replace it, if you could find a replacement. Situation here is that, yes, this is quite the throwaway item. You could not rebuild this. You could not put new bearings in it. You could not put new seals in it without a major piece of work. So, is that a negative? I can't really say it's a negative when other bread machines that I've bought, even though they are retained with the clip, the manufacturers don't seem to provide parts. Perhaps you would have to get into a bread maker that was more in the $250 range to find something that was repairable. I hate the idea of filling up our landfills and having throwaway goods, but I guess it's the way of the future. My first bread maker lasted well over 10 years before the electronics on it finally gave up. The second bread maker I bought lasted just barely 2 years before the pan started to leak so badly that I had to start mixing up my bread in a separate bowl. And honestly, if I have to mix up my bread in a separate bowl and then put it in a bread maker, why am I bothering with the bread maker to begin with? All right, so I promised you we were going to get into this a little bit more thoroughly. I've shown you the pan. I've shown you what you cannot see about the pan just by looking at the Amazon website. And it's hard to always know what questions to ask. So here we have the little, these are all pretty typical. A measuring cup, The hook that you use if the paddle gets stuck in the bottom of your loaf, if you are using this, and a cup measure. What we also have here is a dispenser of nuts and or fruits that goes in the lid right in this area here. It just slides in, and this is well documented in the manual. It just slides in and then clips with this retaining button. What they don't tell you in the manual is how to open this to put your fruits or nuts in it. They show you a picture of it opened. They show a picture of it with the fruit in it, but they do not tell you that on the bottom side of this, there is a black button. That button is not labeled in any way, but if you press that button and move this such, the trap door will fall open. So you fill it with whatever fruits or nuts. I get raisin bread, maybe slivered almonds, whatever your fancy is. Shut it, and then install it. On the lid of the bread machine, there is a corresponding black button that must poke it open at a certain point of the bread mixing process. Not having been there yet, I can't talk to you about that. Inside, we have the typical heating element and the drive, which pushes the paddle around on the pan. Now, before you use this thing, you should take some soapy water on a rag, clean this all out, anything that's on the inside, because what they use on this is they use some sort of an oil or a release agent. It is not necessarily a good thing for food, and that is also documented in the manual that you must clean this before use. Do not immerse it. If you immerse it, that'll be the end of it. You wipe it out with a slightly soapy cloth. Then you wipe it out with a rinse cloth. Don't spray water in here. And don't stick it in. Don't immerse. Same thing for the bread pan. Soapy cleanup, rinse. Do not immerse. Do not put into a dishwasher. That will be the end of it. You'll destroy the seals. After you have washed it, you have to bake it without any